generation. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for sparing out of your busy schedule to come. And I'm sure you'll be glad you did because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of things you are meant to take away from here. And I do hope that you will find it beneficial. And next time you come in, you will bring somebody along with you. So want to thank you all for coming. I will be anchoring the meeting today. Councillor Yetunde will be here, but we may not see much of her today. However, it's going to be an interesting session because we have a very, very special personality here with us. We have Bumi Folarin, who will be talking to us about overcoming challenges and the strategies for overcoming challenges and obstacle. Bumi Folarin is a business analyst with several years of experience, and she's worked in the private sector and the public sector. Happily married with 2 children. She's going to be sharing with us some of her experiences, and these are real life experiences that she will be sharing with us. And I hope that this will help to strengthen us and strengthen our relationships at work or wherever we are, and to strengthen our minds as well, to know that, when we feel we're knocked down by one challenge or the other, or obstacles on our path, to know that, we can always get up and push on. If we don't try again, we will not be able to have that successful story. And the successful story is one we're about to listen to today, and I hope that we'll be greatly encouraged. Thank you all for joining. I wouldn't be talking too much. I will hand over to you, Bumi Folarin. Over to you, Bumi Folarin. And before we go on, sorry, it's a coffee morning, and I hope everybody's got their drinks with them, your coffee with you, and then we'll just jump right in. Thank you, Bumi. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I want to take a minute to quickly say a big thank you to the Next Chosen Generation team, Councillor Yetunde, Sister Yemisi, and the entire team for having me this morning. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share my story, to share my experience, and I hope that there'll be something in there for every one of us, something that would encourage us that whatever it is that we're going through, this too will pass. But more importantly, when we're going through it, to know that there are ways to survive it and to come out on the other side better off than we went in. So I'm not going to take too much of the time. I'll just do a quick time check so I can keep myself on track. So this morning, we're talking about strategies for overcoming challenges and obstacles. And I sort of thought the best way to talk about this really is to approach it from a personal experience. I think before we jump in, I'd like to first of all, just kind of highlight, when we talk about challenges, what do we mean? Challenges are things that require us to participate in some sort of competition. You're competing for something. It's a challenge. Sometimes you're challenged by someone or something or a situation, and that requires a response from you. And similarly, obstacles are things that hinder us or stand in the way of our progress. And the reason we've combined those two things together is that they require a similar type of response. So when we face challenges, it requires us to surmount something, basically. Either we want to win, basically, and we have, when we come across an obstacle, likewise, we want to conquer that obstacle, we want to win. So they require a similar response. So if I sort of jump into the story, I mean, this is a story that at first I was really ashamed of. And the thing that we'll see later on when we come to what are the strategies that we need to use is that some of these things, challenges, obstacles, they bring up emotions in us, and those emotions are generally not very good emotions, and that really is the difference between, you know, people being able to successfully navigate the challenge or the obstacle, and people just getting swept under by it, you know, because those emotions are real. Sometimes we acknowledge them, sometimes we don't. Whatever the case is, they, you know, it is you know, how we handle those emotions that we experience when we face these things is what makes the difference between whether we come out successful or not. So my story was, I mean, I joined this multinational oil company. You know, I was very much a career orientated person. I had, you know, view for when I wanted to retire, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to aspire to. And you know, I worked really hard. And I think that, you know, throughout my time at the company, you know, I was one of the people that was identified as a high achiever. They sent me on all sorts of management and leadership training courses and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I got to the point where, you know, I really felt confident in myself and my abilities and what I could do. And suddenly the company, after spending about 9 years and I think 8 months, you know, the company said, you know, they were going to restructure. And my department was one of the departments that was going, you know, that had to be assessed. And what they did was, and this is the thing, you know, something that a lot of people will experience at some point in their lives. If you're employed, at some point there is a chance that whether it's you're being moved somewhere else that you don't want to work, or you lose your job, it will happen unless you're self-employed. And you're kind of like a master of your own destiny. And even if you're running a business as well, I think it applies. You know, the one thing that we will see through these stories is again the emotions when we participate in any form of activity, whether it's a business activity or a work activity. What we should always remember is that the organization we're representing or the business that we're running are not human beings. They don't have emotions, but they have a structure that is in place to make them work. So we have to detach our emotions from the structure, whether it's the business structure, the business we're running, or the organization we're working for. They're not human beings. We have to realize that. So you know, they did the assessment, you know, for someone who has constantly been told that you're one of the highest achievers in the organizations, you know, anything they're doing, they call you, you're invited, and then they did this assessment, and suddenly they said I didn't fit for any of the roles. So what they did was they created new roles, then they assessed everyone's to fit them into the roles, and suddenly I didn't qualify for any roles. It was like someone had removed the ground from underneath me. And this is quite recent. This was 2019, you know, this happened in 2019. And it completely knocked my confidence to start with. I sort of, you know, I had this opinion about myself. I felt people had this opinion about me, and yet this was happening. You know, this contrary thing was happening. And the first thing I did, it was so easy to go into depression, into a depressive mode. You know, here I was in my 40s already, so you can imagine. it's not like I'm in my 20s or my 30s and I just walk off, pick up a job next week somewhere else. There's just all of those things that were going on in my mind. And I had to really, really, really take a step back and think, where do I start from? What do I need to do? And I had been lucky because I, as part of the organization and all the stuff that they'd sent me on anyway, I'd been on a number of courses where I'd learned a number of strategies, and those things came in handy for me. And so I want to share with us some of those strategies, So bearing in mind that when this happened, the role was made redundant. At first, for me, I felt like I was redundant, and I had to learn that it wasn't me that was redundant. It's the role. I had to separate, the job from me, the person, the emotions, the shame that went into it, that I lost my job basically. And for me, that was shameful. I felt like if I was being assessed and I didn't come up to par, then for me, I felt like I wasn't quite where I was supposed to be, and that for me was a confidence buster, basically. So if I just jump into, and these are the three things that I personally had to do. What I did was I had to take a step back and come to terms with it. I had to come to terms with it for about a week, 2-3 weeks, or even up to a month. I had to tell my close family, obviously, that this thing was happening, but I couldn't even say out loud, because I was so ashamed of it. I didn't know where to start, and that is the problem. That is one problem. The fact that this has happened, those emotions are valid, but we should not become stuck. We should not let those emotions make us stuck. I could have just sat there and felt sorry for myself, become ashamed and hidden away. In the workplace, I couldn't really hide away that much. Everybody knew, at some point, gossip, you'll hear. Eventually, people will know because you're going in and out of rooms, you're signing stuff, and, people will start to find out, obviously, and then you have to start telling people. And so I had to start telling people. So I think the first thing was acknowledging what had happened, that this is real, this is happening, whether I liked it or not. And I had to respond. I had to respond, and my response could either be a positive one or a negative one. I could either face this thing head on, or I could just bury my head in the sand and hope that the problem or the challenge will go away. So acknowledge the emotional experience that you're having, and think about why you're having those. Why was it that I was ashamed about this? Why did I not want to talk about it? Why did I feel like I wasn't enough, or I didn't do enough? And I had to question all those things. And one thing that happened was I went back to the manager, the people who did the assessment, and had to ask for some hard facts. So, and that takes me to the next step. Once you've acknowledged it and you've accepted, what has happened, then you start to question, why is this happening? How did I get to this situation? What's going on? Assess the situation. So I went back and asked for a bit more information. And as you understand that these things eventually, you get to know that these things happen in organizations, and it's just a way of trimming the facts, as it were. Sometimes it's nothing personal. Sometimes people are genuinely not good enough for their jobs, and so they get made redundant, right? But get perspective, get a perspective on why that thing has happened, because it's either something that you've not quite done, or there is, something that has gone wrong somewhere. So what I did was I spoke to, the manager that was in charge of it. They looked at, and I asked for the results of the assessment. What criteria did you assess me against, and all those things like that. And then I went back. Not, I had to fight, because one, I didn't want to just take the assessment, because that goes on my employee record as well, you know. So I had accepted the redundancy, I'd come to terms with it, but I wanted to understand and get some perspective of how I got there, why, and if I was going to respond properly. And so, get perspective on why the thing is happening, get the facts out, basically, and look at it from from very different perspectives. So I had to, understand that, right, the company has to, cut down, trim the fat, and all of those sorts of things. But why me? Why not the next person, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that came to light was, I was one of the newest people in that team. So, but the organization I worked for, they tend to encourage us to every 2 years move teams. So I had recently moved into that team. Basically, a bunch of them some of them had been in that team for 15 years. And here I was, the newbie. Of course, it was a case of, last in, first out type thing. I got to realize that. And then, having spoken to the manager, and, it was just an impossible situation. They had a number they had to cut, and they had to cut it. So that gave me a bit of comfort, but that still didn't solve the challenge and the problem that I didn't have a job anymore, and I had to go and find a new job, So what I started to look at is, having gotten that perspective, which had helped me to navigate my emotions and deal with the feeling of shame, the lack of confidence, I started to speak to people as well. You know, and you start to, what you then should start to do is look for the opportunities that has happened. You understand why it happened, or why that challenge is there, or why that obstacle is there. What can I do about it? So there were opportunities to, look for another job in within the organizations, because they were opening other roles as well. And as part of the conversation, when I challenged the assessment, the manager who I spoke to then went off and spoke to another manager, who then came back and said, oh, there's another job in another part of the organization, put me forward for it. Basically, they gave me a role. But what I did then do was, remember what I said, get perspective and get it from a range of vantage points. Don't just look at this thing from one side, Look at it from a variety of perspectives, see it from your own perspective, from the perspective of the organization. Seek counsel from people around you who are not directly in the emotions that you're feeling, and can kind of point things out to you. And one of the things that, after having spoken to other people in the organization, or colleagues and mentors and things like that, people were like, they were so confident that I was going to go out there and really do well. And if I didn't stay at that company, I would easily find a new role. They were so confident in me and my abilities, whereas this thing really knocked me back, and I didn't think that I could, So that kind of opened up the opportunity to see what else was out there, and then people started suggesting, going contracting and doing all things that I had wanted to do myself before, and I hadn't really had the chance to be able to do. And so I sort of took, so at this point I had this job in hand. So I had this offer that I was offered, which meant I would go and start off in another team, completely different part of the organization. Remember, this is a multinational oil company. So moving that far off is almost starting in a new company, because I was going from what we call the finance side of the organization and moving to the retail side, which is, downstream oil. If anyone's familiar with the oil industry. And so it was like going to start a new job. So I said to myself, I've got this opportunity to go and, so which means, I have job security. I could take the redundancy pay, because they're not going to send me off just like that, and go and do what I've always wanted to do, to start my own consultancy, and I had a bit of a cushion. If I didn't get any contracts quickly, at least I had a cushion. So this is the thing with challenges and obstacles. They always bring with them opportunities. If we turn our backs on the challenges or the obstacles, we cannot see those opportunities. If we remain stuck in the emotions and we don't get perspective, we cannot see the opportunities. So it's important to, one, acknowledge and deal with the emotion, get perspective, so you're seeing clearly, and you're reacting logically and rationally. And then you start to see the opportunities. So at that point, I said to myself, I went with the option of, stepping out into the unknown, having, gotten a range of perspectives and people. I was so surprised. Colleagues in the organization were sending, giving me contacts everywhere. I had, like, before I'd even left, I'd done a whole range of interviews. It was as if everyone was just struggling to help me, basically. So this is the thing, that don't hide away, don't hide or bury your head in the sand. These challenges and these obstacles are opportunities to help us grow and to help us develop, and people are always willing to help. You'd be surprised. People are always willing to help. So those three things are my key challenge, and how I got through it. So I went with the going out to set out on my own. And I gave myself a target. I said, I'm gonna, give myself I think I gave myself 6 months to find something, either find another job or find a contract that I can then start the consultancy off. And that's what I did. And it was daunting. I was afraid, but I did it afraid, knowing fully well that the challenge or the obstacle is an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to develop, to become more, to develop my own leadership skills as well. It was an opportunity for me to grow, because I'd be launching a company, something I'd never done before, and doing it formally. So again comes another range of emotions, And so what I want to point out to us is that we will always face challenges and we will always face obstacles. So these 3 steps are a cycle. As you're coming out of one challenge, another one is presenting itself, or an obstacle. And so you keep going around that circle. Once you come out, another thing comes up. Acknowledge it, get perspective, find the opportunity, run with it. Another challenge comes up, repeat the same process. And hopefully that can help us to navigate our challenges. I'm going to pause there. I think I've been going for about 20 minutes, which is about what I had. Yes. And stop for questions. And let me just move to the next slide, which is basically to encourage us. But yeah, I'll stop for questions here.
Thank you very much, Bumi Folari. Thank you so much. I have taken down notes, and I've got so much to learn from this and to review. And as I'm speaking, I've got people raising their hands, and I'm sure there are questions for you. So I'll probably hold on. I would start with Abraham Okusoya to go on and ask his question or say something, and then that would be followed by Abiola Dabiri. So Abraham, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Hello.
Sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. But I just wanted to say, you've done an incredible job, Sister Bumi, and um, you don't give yourself enough credit. As I was hearing the story, I was just saying to myself, here is somebody who spent 10 years in a global corporation. Chances are there are a million other companies out there who will take you, who will fight over you, over your skill and expertise. So I'm not surprised he ended where he ended. So kudos to you. It's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Jide, thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. And that's an encouragement to everyone. I didn't think that at the time. I was like, where am I going to start from? I didn't see that, and that's the getting perspective. So Jide, that's really spot on. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that comment, Jide. Abiola, are you still raising up your hand?
Yes, I'm here. I mean, I think the first thing I wanted to say when I listened to her was one thing someone told me: when we don't give ourselves enough credit of how far we've come, of what we have done. Yes, the journey looks far, but we don't give ourselves enough credit. And when we don't, especially as female in big global corporates, because we don't give ourselves that credit, it affects our confidence. In fact, I remember a few years ago when we did a gender parity assessment, we realized that when a recruitment is ongoing, men tend to negotiate the offer. Women don't. Women don't. So when we did that assessment, we found that people, even women with more experience and qualification, earning less because they just accepted the offer. Whereas men would say, no, I want more, I demand more. The other thing I think I learned from what you see is, now it leaves me, is just, I think it's just learning to trust ourselves, learning to know that I've done enough. And if it's not enough, I'll do better. That's essentially what I wanted to say. We're good. We're not too, yes, that's essentially, but I'm getting into an elevator, so I'm sure it's going to go off. But if I get back on, I would continue if it's the time permits.
Oh, thank you very much, Biola. I think that is very insightful. And that is to tell everyone here that, you are more than what you probably think you are doing. And so even if somebody has said to you that, oh, well, you haven't done enough, that should not knock us out completely. That shouldn't knock you out completely. Look at it from a different point of view on how you can even do better. And for all you care and for all you would find out that a lot of people are out there looking for an opportunity to hire you or to take you in. So that is a good one. Thank you.
Great. Any more?
Do you have any other thing to say?
I do. So I mean, jumping back to what Biola just said, this is, so the last slide I have here is, what else can you do? Aside from that is my 3-step process to keep navigating going forward. That's what I'm going to continue to do. But what else do you need in order to be able to overcome challenges? There are certain sort of skills or strengths that a person who is going to be able to overcome these challenges needs to have. You've got to be resilient. Someone who's resilient is someone who You get knocked down, you get up again, you keep going. You get knocked down, you get up again, you keep going. That's what keeps you going through that cycle and coming out and start and moving on in your journey. You've got to develop emotional intelligence. As we said at the beginning, when you face challenges and obstacles, there is always an emotion that you feel and you have to express, whether it's shame, whether it's fear, whether it's loss of confidence. You will face those emotions. Now, you've got to be smart about your emotions. One, being able to recognize when those emotions show up, and being able to respond positively to those emotions in the right way. And the third thing is develop a positive mindset. You know, Biola said it, Jide said a similar thing, that sometimes, and I did it, I didn't have that much of a positive mindset about the situation. I didn't give myself enough kudos for what I could do. And that links nicely into the last one, which is self-efficacy. I was going to kind of put self-belief in there, which was similar, but they're not the same thing. Self-efficacy is believing in your own ability to do something, to achieve something, you know, to get something done. You must know that, okay, yeah, I've lost this job. There's a billion, you know, BA project management jobs out there. I have the qualification. I am able to do the job. I've done it successfully for 10 years. I should be able to, you know, go out there and do that job elsewhere. I don't have to do it here if it is not possible to do it here anymore. And that's it. That's where I'll leave it. I want to leave us with this quote. Believe in yourself and all that you are. And I think, you know, the people who have spoken have said that. Know that there is something inside you that is greater than that obstacle. There is something on the inside of you that is greater than any obstacle or any challenge that you can ever face. You've just got to find it and bring it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bumi. Before you stop, there is a question here for you.
Okay.
And it says that, what did you learn about the process of starting your consultancy and winning your first client? I think that's the biggest one when you launch out, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're just worried about the first one. You know
Exactly.
that when the first one comes, the others will come. So
Yeah.
how did you deal with that?
So one of the things, again, is that lack of confidence. And so sometimes one thing that I did was I just wanted to get that first contract. And I didn't mind if they were even going to pay me £1 for it. You know, and every day that I was looking and searching, I was dropping my standards and my, you know, my contract rates, basically, you know. And I was lucky that I didn't drop it too far. I remember when I got the first contract and the guy asked me, so, you know, how much would I charge, you know, as a daily rate? And I sort of sat there and I just called out a number, and the way that guy quickly took that number, and I saw him punch into his calculator and say, oh yeah, we can. I was like, eh? And it turns out that another guy who joined and worked alongside me was being paid £100 a day more than I was. So when I went into my next contract, so that was a learning curve for me. So be prepared when you're starting off your own consultancy. I think one thing that I didn't do was I didn't do enough research as to what I could realistically charge for certain types of roles, you know. So do your research, know and you have to ask people. People might not necessarily want to be forthcoming, but ask, you know. And sometimes it's good to let them tell you rather than you tell. Yeah. Biola also said be prepared to negotiate. So when you go in with that number, what I did say, and the guy didn't argue with me, he said, So my response was, well, I want something in this range. So if you're not sure, give a range. Yeah, give a range of where where you really want to be, and where you just manage. Okay, but never go beyond, because there is, if that's how much that contract is worth, somebody is out there willing to pay it. By the time I got my next contract, I got back my £100 a day after learning that lesson.
Fantastic. I do have a question, and we all have different personalities, and it would range from person to person. Talking about, developing a positive mindset and the emotions. I can sit down here and be saying, oh, yes, 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 yes. Yes, I'm so positive about this interview. I'm going for this interview, or I'm so positive about this. I'm going there, with a positive mindset. And then you go the first time, you get a no. You go the second time, you get a no. You go the third time, you get no response. And there is a time space, say for example, you want to move from one job to another, or from one level to a higher level, and you're developing yourself, you are doing everything you think you should do to get to that stage. And every time, I know you have talked about, having a good perspective, and getting opinions and getting feedbacks, from people. But sometimes when it looks like you've done all those things, and nothing is happening, because I know that there are people who will tell you, I've been waiting for X number of years. It might not even be a job. It might just be something you really want to achieve in life. How do you keep yourself and keep hope alive?
Right. So that's really important. So, when you're trying and you've done everything you should be doing, you've gotten perspective, you've gotten feedback, you're responding to the feedback, and still nothing is happening. How do you keep hope alive? Now, one of the ways that you can keep hope alive is, I always say, one of the mentors that I had, and one thing that I always remember him saying to me was, there are several paths to any destination. There is never just one route to any destination. And sometimes a sideways shift is what you need in order for you to then find a detour to get to where you need to get to. So if you're trying to go in this direction and it's not working, and you're getting good feedback, but still the doors are not opening, or the challenge is still there, what I say is, again, getting perspective. Why am I being blocked? What else can I do? So one of the things is asking yourself all these, as a business analyst, that's the, constantly problem solving. So those questions, constantly challenging and questioning. Why is this happening? When must this thing happen? And so what I always suggest to people, based on what I've learned from my mentor and what has worked for me, is sometimes a sideways shift. A sideways shift will get you to where you need to get to. So you might need to, in order to keep hope alive, what else can I do that is still related? So let's give ourselves an example, a real example. So I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. I'm saving, or I want to become a landlord. Let's do it that way. I'm saving, and I can't afford to get the house. Well, there's so many other things you can do, whether it's, go and live with someone so you can save more and get a bit more, or maybe you want to go and what do they call these things? This shared ownership, whatever is, it's one step towards. It keeps your hope alive because you're still on that journey, and you know that at some point you will be, you can come out of there having owned the first property. Maybe you then have a bit more equity to then move on, but just something that it might not necessarily be a direct step, but it's a step to one side, but then it keeps you still on track for that journey, is what I would suggest that people do, or you want to get into project management, you want to become a program manager. Sometimes, it's not that easy. You might even do the courses and not get the job. So you might want to go and do a PM/BA role that gives you a bit of experience, and then you can then use that to get into the PM job, something like that.
Right. Thank you so much, Bumi. Thank you very much. There's been so much that's been said here today, and I'm sure that each one of us, after we've left here, will go and reassess ourselves. And like you said, it's a continuous circle. It is a circle when you go through challenges and you think, oh, I've just solved one, another one might just be coming up. And we really need to be resilient in all that we do. So I want to thank you very much for coming. And I would also like to say that we will come back and ask you to come and talk about something else. So get ready for us. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. And I know that, we all have different experiences that we can apply this scenario to and use it to develop ourselves. So thank you very much for coming. And I would like to say to everybody that's come, I've seen people come from Newcastle, from everywhere pretty much. Thank you for coming. Next time you come, please bring your friends along. You can tell from what we say here that we are here to equip one another and to develop ourselves. So please bring your friends with you when next you are coming. There will always be interesting topics and things to learn from and to share. I mean, we've had people talk about on this program today, people have talked about many times we kind of look down on ourselves. We think that, oh, actually, I am not as good as, I should be, because somebody is not thinking that way. You are much, much better than that. Of course, you are better than that. And I want us to go away with that mindset, that the fact that we face obstacles and challenges does not mean that, any aspect of our life is poor. There might be places that need development and we need to focus on. However, you are more than that. So, just put your head up and face the challenges as it comes. And obviously, as Bumi has said, with every challenge that you face, there are opportunities that you probably didn't see before. But when you pay attention to it, you will begin to see those opportunities. So I want to thank you very much for coming. This is recorded and we are live on YouTube, as I said, and you can always go back and listen to it again and again on YouTube. Thank you very much. Our next edition is coming up again in August. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody come. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending your sunny Saturday afternoon with us. And I shall see you again.